Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. Thank you so much for joining me. Now, on today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 4 levels of consciousness, how they relate to your voice, and I'm going to give you a bit more information about each level so you can see where you're at and what is required to move to the next level. So I'm going to talk all about this. It's really, really interesting, and I hope will really help you to understand maybe how you're holding yourself back and why you might be struggling. Before I get going though, if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy my videos, please give them a like, share, and comment. As always, all the links are below if you're interested in working with me and you want to go deeper. This is deep work. This is personal transformation work using the vehicle of your voice. And as a byproduct of you shifting internally, your authentic voice will emerge. Yes, we still have to train the voice and do that work, but it's fundamentally, first and foremost, an inner shift. So that's what really differentiates me from your average voice coach. So let's talk about the 4 levels of consciousness. Now, before I get started, I didn't actually invent these 4 levels of consciousness. I'm taking them, adding my own perspective and how I perceive they relate to the voice. But actually, I learned about this through Michael Beckwith because I found it so incredibly powerful in my own personal journey that I wanted to kind of share this to help you understand where you might be holding yourself back, where you might be struggling with your voice, and how you can move forward. So let's talk about the first level then, which I think, honestly, we're all conditioned to really identify with this first level, which is victim consciousness, which is things are happening to me. Now, you just have to look out in the world, on the news, in social media, and it's always this massive blame culture. Who's to blame? Who needs to lose their job? Who needs to be locked up? Who needs to pay compensation? It's blame, 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 blame. It's always outside of us. There's something wrong with someone else, a company, a government, fill in the blank. So it's always projected out. Now, the problem is that you might be like, well, yes, it is their fault. And first of all, I want to say there's a massive difference between blame and responsibility. And that is going to help you also on your own journey, because when we get stuck in the blame game, we don't really move anywhere. So yes, we do take responsibility, but we don't need to blame ourselves or others. So there is a difference. But first of all, how might this show up with your voice? So if you are in this victim consciousness, things happen to me, as Michael Beckwith said, then how might this show up? Well, first of all, I mean, you're unlikely to be watching one of these videos, I'll be honest, maybe. You definitely wouldn't be working with me if you're in stage 1, because it's very much about, this is the way my voice is. There's nothing I can do. Woe is me. Poor me. I've just got a weak voice. I've just got a quiet voice. I've always spoken like this. I've always spoken quickly. I've always struggled to project. Fill in the blank. Another aspect of this is I'm just not good at public speaking. I'm just not confident. So what happens from that consciousness is you don't even try and find a solution. So you're probably not going to be watching my video. You definitely wouldn't be investing in any kind of voice training, particularly with me, because mine is a higher investment than probably your average coach. So it very much keeps you stuck. And the problem with this is it's really limiting. It really holds you back and it keeps you stuck. Because if you really believe there's nothing you can do, if you really believe, well, this is just the way I was made, the way I was born, fill in the blank, well, then that's what you'll see in the world. And so even if you were to try and look at some videos and maybe invest in a coach, you'll probably sabotage it because on some level, you are so identified with this level of consciousness, this victim consciousness. So there's a part of you that doesn't even want to change because there's something about this identity that feels quite safe for you, that feels quite comfortable for you. So as I said, I don't think most people watching my videos would fall into this, but I think most of us have or do fall into this victim consciousness at times, maybe not around our voice, but it is so prevalent in the way we are all conditioned. And so we do tend to judge, blame, criticize others And this is all, certainly from a Jungian psychology perspective, this is really all about projection. So we don't want to look at ourselves, so we project it all out onto the world, onto people, onto situations, because then I don't have to go within. And that's really why it keeps you so small, so stuck, and you don't grow. And what you'll end up doing is probably staying in your comfort zone, probably moaning about it, complaining about it to anyone that will listen. And you'll just avoid taking bigger opportunities, bigger promotions, or whatever it is for you. You know, you'll stay stuck in situations because you believe that that's it. So, number two, I've called achiever consciousness, which is things happen by me. Now, this is where I would suggest that most people that watch my videos are. And also, I would say most people I end up coaching are as well. This is this sort of motivational consciousness. I have to make things happen. If I work hard enough, then I'll get the result. If I get the grades, then I can get the job. If I train hard enough, then I'll reach that goal. We've all been there. And certainly it depends on your upbringing again around education. And if that was a big part of your education, like getting grades, getting results, you know, you got love, you got attention for getting results. So that very much feeds into it. But I think that that's where a lot of people live, and that's where a lot of self-help, personal development is at this achiever consciousness level, that I just need to work really hard, nose to the grindstone, pound the pavements, and then I'll get the results. Now, that's not to say you don't get results at this level, but it is limited. You will hit a ceiling, or you'll burn out, get sick, get depressed. Something will happen because you can't actually sustain it. And you see this all the time with people. They might be able to sustain it for 10 years, 20 years, and then they just suddenly get really ill, or they collapse, or something happens. Or, and I see this a lot with my clients, people that come from this achiever consciousness perspective reach a ceiling. They feel frustrated because they're working really hard. They're trying really hard. They're putting in the work. They're putting in the time. They're doing the exercises. Yet they still feel like they're hitting a ceiling. So how many of you can relate? Now, this is me. This has certainly been me. And I think what I want to say as well about these levels of consciousness is you don't just kind of go up through 1, 2, 3, 4. You flip-flop between them. So I know for me, I can often fall back into this level, particularly if I'm feeling particularly stressed, I go back into achiever consciousness perspective, and it's really, really common. And also sometimes, you know, if you're having a really hard time, you might go back into victim consciousness. So we're not making any of them wrong. But as you're going to see, by the time you get to level 4, that's where you're really free. That's where your voice is really free. That's where you feel really more at peace and freer. And that's really, I think, what we all want. We want to live fully, freely, and peacefully. So from a voice perspective, then, as I said, you're going to be working really hard. You're going to be doing the training. You're going to be showing up every day. I've got lots of clients that fall into this. But then you feel like you hit a ceiling. You're trying, you've been doing this for months, and I've got here, but I really want to be here. And there's something kind of stopping me. And so you end up getting frustrated. And then you end up beating yourself up more. So coming back to my earlier point about blame versus responsibility, it's not about blaming yourself. It's just owning it. It's taking responsibility, which is different. So we're never beating ourselves up. We're never beating anyone else up, literally or figuratively. But we do want to take responsibility because on some level, we are creating this. But if it doesn't make sense, then it's unconscious. So that's level 2. Level 3, I am calling surrender consciousness, which is things happen through me. Now, I did a video recently, which I will link at the end of this video, about the flow state. And for me, this is really about the flow state. So this is really about letting go of control. So as we progress up these levels of consciousness, we realize that actually do, and pounding the pavements and training really hard only gets us so far. And we realize actually to step into this next level of creativity and imagination and productivity, there's actually got to be an element of us letting go. So we begin to surrender. Now, we might not surrender most of the time. It might be like I do my work, I do my training, I do my practice, and then when I get on stage, then I let go. Now, that's certainly me. So for me, I'm very good at accessing this when I'm singing or when I'm doing things like this. But then there's other times of my life where I just go back to stage two or occasionally stage one. But it's really trying to live here as much as possible. And as I say, for a lot of us, I've talked about this before, professional athletes, musicians, etc., they're very good at accessing the flow state so that the voice or the instrument, they become one with the instrument and the voice really flows through you. You're not in your head trying to micromanage your voice and your words. You allow the voice and your words to be expressed through you. So you end up actually letting go of trying to control your voice and your words. You are more present, you are more connected. So when you're talking to people, you're not talking from your head, you're talking from your heart. You're very, very present and you're very trusting of the process. So what you start to do is you start to have this glimmer of actually when you start to let go, things just work better. My voice works better. I connect with people more easily. People just want to listen to me. People want to engage with me. But from my perspective, when we're at the surrender consciousness, we're obviously surrendering to something. So we still believe we are the ego and that we need to let go of the ego, meaning we're still attached to the ego as who we are. So from my perspective, levels 1 and 2 are very much ego consciousness. One is, woe is me, everything happens to me. The other is, I can do everything, I can make everything happen. But we still believe we're separate. We're still operating from that separation consciousness, that there's me and then there's the world out there. Level 3, from my perspective, this surrender consciousness is almost like this bridge between the ego and the separation and the true self, the whole self, the yin and the yang coming together, the full kind of individuated psyche. And so this is a really important bridge. You can't go from level 1 to level 4. You do actually kind of have to move through these. But as I said, you will flip-flop between them because we're human, we're imperfect, and we're trying to kind of navigate our way through this powerful personal growth journey. So just start to notice when you do have moments of being in the flow state. And I guarantee you are not in your head. You are in your heart. You are connected to what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're singing, what you're playing, fill in the blank. Finally, level 4 is what I'm calling oneness consciousness, which is things happen as me, meaning I am at one with the universe, the world, the external, everything that's showing up in my environment is an aspect of me. And actually, the more it bothers me, the more it triggers me, the more it upsets me, the more it is pointing to something in my unconscious that I cannot see unless this situation, this person shows up. This is the hardest thing for the ego to accept, and it will fight it, will fight you to the bitter end. And I know because I've been on this journey for a while. I do this work with my clients, and it takes a lot of courage to go to this, but this is a big part of my work, really starting to see that you are connected to it all, that the world is literally a mirror, whether it's your boss, whether it's your partner, whether it's your audience, whatever it is, and particularly if it triggers you, then it's really an unseen, unmet, unintegrated part of you. Now, when you can begin to integrate it, that's when you become a whole person. That's when you're fully charged, like the battery, the two ends of the battery coming together, you are fully charged. And that's when you can really step into your power. Now, from that place, that's where your authentic voice really begins to emerge, because you're no longer at war within. You're no longer trying to uphold a particular persona to be accepted. You're no longer trying to push anything away unconsciously. You are really connected very deeply. And your voice then, there's nothing stopping your voice from emerging. You speak fluently, you speak spontaneously, you speak clearly and expressively because you are connected within. And then the voice can emerge. Now, as I said before, we still have to do the voice training so that the voice is ready and primed for this. But fundamentally, it starts as an inner journey first and foremost. When we're coming from this oneness consciousness as well, we're never then trying to control or manipulate people around us because we see they are just us. When we believe we're separate, we do feel out of control. We do feel anxious. We do feel fearful. And therefore, we do feel like we've got to control people, micromanage people, manipulate people. And we might do it in more socially acceptable ways by pleasing and being overly nice. But it is still believing that we are separate. So this is such a powerful place to come to because then there's really there's nothing to fear because everything is you on some level. The challenge is really to understand what it's showing you about you. And certainly part of my coaching is looking at the triggers, what shows up, particularly voices, things about people that really bother you, that really get under your skin, situations that are presenting themselves, particularly when it's a pattern, looking at your voice habits. What are they protecting you from? What are you running away from? So all of this, then we can really start to connect to our wholeness because we are no longer at war within. And this is what makes my coaching so unique and so transformational in the voice space, because most of the time coaches are working on the ego level. You know, it's like, well, I've gone from feeling that I'm no good and now I feel really good, but it's still from that motivational, I'm separate from the world perspective versus no, you're connected to everything. And from that place, you are so powerful, so in your flow and confident and at ease with yourself because there's nothing to fear. You know that everything that's showing up is for you and is helping you on this journey to more wholeness. I also just want to end with this isn't just okay, well, in a couple of weeks, I get to stage 4 and I'm done. This is a lifelong journey. And as I said, you will flip flop, but it's like, where can I live? Where can I spend more time in? Where can I spend longer in? And that's really the goal of this, if we're going to add a goal to it. It's moving more towards stage 4 and living there more and more as we go through our life. Versus, I think for most of us, including myself, stage 1 is where I probably lived for at least the first 15, 20 years of my life. Woe is me, things are happening to me. I've just got to make the best of it. And that's where a lot of us are. But it's powerless. You're limited. You're never going to feel free. You're always going to feel small and powerless. So if you're interested in this deeper approach to understanding yourself and working with your voice, and as I say, the goal is still that your voice emerges in a much more powerful, clear, and expressive way, I would love to work with you. I'd love to speak to you. This is deep. This is transformational. It's a journey like no other. So all the links are below if you're interested in booking a session with me. But until next week, I'll see you then.